Hi, I'm Keith Lundholm and I'm with New Vintage Automotive. And today we're going to discuss the Opel GT headlight wire and harness. You can purchase these through us at New Vintage and other Opel suppliers. And we thought we would do this video since we had a perfect candidate right here, right now, that we're going to be pulling out the headlight harness and then installing one of ours. So we thought, what better than to give you a video to help walk you through it a little bit. So we're going to begin with showing you the key components of the wire and harness, how it's run in the car, and then maybe some tips and tricks to help you install. You'll find that our harness is a lot easier to install than even a factory harness. So we'll start with the components and we'll take you from there. So the factory harness comes out of a grommet that is right here on the firewall. Here's your wiper motor, and it comes up directly from the fuse box, and there will be a lot of goop right here. You can replace this with, black silicone, clear silicone, even dum-dum as we call it, or it's like a caulking tape from 3M or butyl. There will be 3 harnesses that come out of that point. One comes out to the left, and that's your engine harness. For all your wiring for your coil, oil sending unit, etc. And there will be a short harness. We've actually got it taped up here, but that goes into that grommet and goes to your wiper motor. So those 2 harnesses you won't touch if you're only doing the headlight harness. Now we will be doing the engine harness in this as well, so we'll be placing it in there. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to dig out all that butyl, kind of break it away. It'll be most cases it's pretty brittle, and you can break it away. So then the headlight harness comes out and down, but you can see this car, it's got this big wiring mess right here. Now that's obviously not factory, that's someone's fix, because probably they had a headlight issue, which is very common on a Opel GT, because from about this point right here forward, Opel decided to use rubber coated wire to they felt that the headlights rotating flexed so much that the wire needed some extra movement. But then after 15 years, those wires would dry rot and crack and short out against each other. So that's why it's important to replace this harness. If you do anything at a minimum, is replace this harness. So you can see these tabs right here. Those are bin tabs, and that's what the harness is kind of connected to or held into as it goes through here. Okay, so the wiring comes down through here, and it'll go through that hole in the core support. And then it comes over here, and this is usually where you see a mess, but there will be 2 screws up in here that are ground screws, and you'll see all the brown wires go to those. And then you've got part of the harness that goes up through the driver's headlight, and then part of it that'll go down, and I'm going to show you that full path. Okay, so then that harness, hopefully you can see with the light, it comes down right here below the master cylinder and around, and you got a hook there. Oh, I'm sorry. You got a hook right there that just secures it, and then it comes up, and then you have a branch that'll go to your front marker light, well, not marker light, but your front turn signal, and on this one it's a turn signal and a running light. And then you have two sets of wires that'll be paired here that are black and yellow and brown, and that's for your horn. Now if you have an earlier car, the little horns were located inside the fender well on a mounting tab, and those wires will be longer to help you install. So then the harness comes through this top support and to your other horn and to your other turn signal bucket, and then it travels up. And now we're gonna see that, you know, the wiring has been undone here, but it goes up and into this hole for the passenger headlight. And that's all that wire goes through. So you can pretty much follow all the tabs to see how it routes. It's not difficult to route that back the factory way. So now I'm going to show. We've already got the headlights out of these, and this is what the mechanism looks like. Now you can see, you know, they've already got, well, this is just a wire. This is for the marker light. We've got it'll go to this marker light right here, the curved amber lens, and you can see it's a gray and red. The other side will be gray and black, but this is the mechanism, and this has a Microswitch that you've got 3 wires that go to on this side. Now on earlier models, these wires are going to be different, and that's some of the differences with the harnesses. Is like this one should be a white with a yellow stripe, a brown, and then it may be a brown and a black. And those have to go on that switch a certain way, and we'll show you that as well, so you won't get them mixed up. Now on this driver's side, there will be 2 Microswitches, and one turns on the system, and again we just got that tied around where we painted this car. One will turn on the lights when you rotate them over, and the other switches work in unison to tell you, hey, the lights didn't turn on. So a white indicator will come up on the dash telling you that the lights didn't turn on. And sometimes we eliminate that. Sometimes we like to add another on and off switch to this side, so that way you've got a backup system in case it fails. You know, the original one, if that Microswitch goes bad, you know, it's a pain in the rear to pull out a headlight to replace a Microswitch back there. But to access these, you've got there's 3 bolts. Now one will be right here behind the master cylinder, and you can see it. You can see the access hole right there for one of the screws. Some people will come in these headlight buckets and start taking these screws apart, don't. Leave those there. They have no reason to come out. So leave those there. And then inside the fender wells, there's a door with 4 screws. And this will access two more of the bolts. You can kind of see the door there, the outline. We'll pull those out and we'll show that a little further when we get into it. So next step will be to pull the headlight mechanisms, and we'll go through and show you all that. Okay, so this is what it looks like with the door off. And you can see right there is one of the 3 bolts. That's on the bottom center. And maybe I can show you up in here. There will be another one right there. Yeah, right in there. Kind of hidden by the wires there. That'll be the top right one. And I'm on the passenger side. So again, the 3rd one will be accessed through the engine bay, which I showed in an earlier video. So you got the one in the engine bay, that one there, and the one up on the top right. And they're 10mm heads. You pull those off and that headlight mechanism will come forward. So just to show you, now we obviously got the turn signal buckets taken out. We got to come in here, we'll detail this and stuff. This car just received a paint job. But you'll have a harness that goes into the back of that bucket. And this one will have, you'll see this wire's tied together. And it's gray and red because this is a running light. So it goes up to your marker light as a joiner. And then this is a black and green, that's your turn signal. And then this is a brown wire, that's your ground. So you'll have, on the later ones, 71 to 73, you'll have 3 wires. Or let's say 3 connections. And for instance, I hope you can see this. Like this ground wire, you can see the tab is actually broken. And that's what happens over the years. You know, this harness is 50 years old. And so, you know, they get physical wear just from being pulled on and off sometimes. And then your horns here, of course, you know, they just disconnect. And I've got this other harness, you know, so it'll pull up there. Just wanted to show you that. I mean, that's not rocket science. That should be obvious how those wires come out. And it's going to go back in exactly like that.
My name is Brandon. I work at New Vintage. We're doing the headlight harness on this car, and one of the best tips I can probably give and assistance on installing one, especially for the person that don't do this all the time, is as you're pulling everything out and pulling your wires out, don't be afraid to cut it off your marker lights. Cut it right at the end. Leave enough to where you can tell the color code of it before you pull your wires. Don't unplug everything. Doing that is going to cause confusion whenever you go to lay it back out and put it back together. You're going to start questioning which wire goes to what connector. So if you just cut and leave about 1 inch or so on each slide or each connection, you'll kind of have a diagram of how to wire it right back up. So whenever it's all said and done, it has no problems, no issues.
Yeah, and what he's talking about is, especially on the Microswitches, they have small markings on the back of them, but it can get confusing. So if you'll leave a bit of connection on these Microswitches, when you go to put the new harness in, you can unplug them and plug in each wire and know that you have it in the right spot. If it's something that's, you know, going to be confusing to you, That's a tip. You're going to replace this wiring no matter what, so leaving a little bit on there could be helpful. So here's the back of the headlight mechanisms. And now we're just going to leave them like this. We can swap these wires out like this, but if you undo the C-clip right here, there's a really tiny snap ring basically, and this will come right down so you can get full view of it. But right here is your microswitch, and it has 2 screws that hold it. And you can even just undo these screws and pull this out so to get it. But what we're going to do, we're going to cut the wire right here, because you know you got a ground wire, you got this white and yellow, and then a brown and black, I believe, and we won't get them mixed up because we'll have that end of the harness on there. So you know, if you were reusing this for some reason, I don't know why you would, but you wouldn't want to cut this, but we're going to on this. So then on the driver's side, I'll try to get in here so you can see, is you got one switch here and one switch here. And you can see those activating. Okay, so this one on this side is the on-off switch, and it'll be a yellow and black wire, and those are important. Those are the most important wires, and I recommend replacing that microswitch as well. We do carry those, but we're just going to clip those, and that's going to speed up pulling out the wires. Now, also, what you didn't see is when this mechanism's up there, through this hole, you have 3 wires for your headlights: yellow, brown, and white. And you know, we just cut those and pulled them through so we could paint. But you know, you will have wires through there, and they'll come through this hole out of the back. You know, this is just a through hole, and it goes through here, and then it comes out this hole by the master cylinder into your main harness. So we're ready to cut those loose and pull this wire on out, and we're just gonna cut it in sections so we don't have to drag it all through, especially if you paint it and stuff, risk of scratching. So we're just gonna cut it loose. Now on this has what you would say is an aftermarket master cylinder. Okay, and then right here in this location between these lines was on the factory master cylinder a brake failure switch, and our harnesses will come with a brown wire that connects to that. And if you have this aftermarket master cylinder, you can just cut that wire loose, or you don't need it. It'll just be a ground, and you just cut it, tape it off, eliminate it, or just leave it hanging. It won't affect anything. It should have an insulated cover on it, so it shouldn't ground out to anything anyways. But that'll be the only other connection up here that might confuse you, is a brown wire for that master cylinder. And I'm not sure if I can dig it out on this harness where they left it. Okay, but yeah, that's the factory wire. It's got a little plastic insulator, and it goes up into the harness. It comes out about right in here. It'll come out. So if you see that wire hanging, you know, same thing. It's for that. Okay, you can see we just cut the headlight harness. I mean, it's all going. If you leave your other ends connected, it'll help walk you through it. But you can see that I took all this out. I just took a screwdriver to it and pried it out. It comes out in little chunks. And you can see there's a rubber grommet right there where the 3 harnesses are going in. And they go right down the fuse box. So once you got all that goop out, that's actually pretty flexible. And then I'm going to show you where we go from here on dropping the fuse box down so we can access the rest of the wires. Okay, so here's a fuse box. Now, the only thing that really holds this up are these 2 nuts. And just remember, you've got ground wires hooked up here. And we're going to be accessing some of these wires on the back side of this. And right here, this relay here, that's your high beam relay. And then I'm going to try to show you. Kind of hard to do. But right here is your headlight relay. And this will have 4 wires coming off of it. And that's for all your marker lights. And then it feeds this headlight switch or high beam switch with power. That's why you see that white and yellow wire looped around. So right off, and we have the dash out, but you don't have to have the dash out to do this at all. But it just makes it easier where you can get to it. So the back of this is actually just tucked in to a metal slot that allows it to just hang in the back. A lot of times you'll find that this fuse box is busted right here. This one's actually in really nice shape. So we're actually going to retain some of the harness on this, because this car is pretty much a low mileage, unmolested car. Kind of rare we get such a car. Undo those grounds. Okay, and then this fuse box will kind of just, you can just kind of work it down. Okay, and then this is what you're going to get. You're going to be hanging down, and then we can kind of pull that harness that we cut on through like so. So there's the harness we cut. This is the engine harness that's going up there, and you can tell where it's wrapped, where the wrap ends. That's about where it's going to come out of your grommet right there. And so you're going to get to this point, and it's going to be a little bit, this is going to be the challenge of the job, is working the fuse box, because you got to work through this mess to fish out your wires that you're replacing. So this is where you want to take your time, and you'll find that it's actually pretty simple. There'll only be a couple of connectors that you'll have to take from these plugs, and I'll show you how to do that next. Okay, so hopefully I can do this and not make a total blunder of myself, but on this green connector up top here is a white 12 gauge wire. Now, it really doesn't need to be 12 gauge, but factory somehow you know, they like to oversize wires. But anyways, that's the first connector on this top right. And that's for the, like I said, that's for the high beam wire to go to the indicator. And you can use a flat blade, a small mini flat blade screwdriver. I've got an actual wiring terminal tool, and you just go in here. I'm probably not going to be able to do this on camera, but it's got a little tab that you'll reach in and you'll bend it flat with the connector, so then you can push it through. And I actually got super lucky there to do that one-handed. But so you can see this connector coming out here, and I'll try to do a close-up of it. Okay, so that connector's out, and that's what it looks like. And you can see on the new harness what it looks like too. But see, it's got that little tab right there that you'll bend out. And when you put this in, that'll click in and it'll lock it in, so it doesn't push out when you reconnect it. So that's a white wire that goes to the back of that relay, and you'll just pull it out. We can pull it through. Pull it through, and you'll see it connects right there to that high beam terminal right here. Here, I'll try to get a different angle. I got wires going everywhere, but that's where it is. And that'll come off, but I'm just wanting to kind of show you the method. Now, there will be a one of these brown wires. Off the top of my head, it's either this one on the yellow connector, or it's this green connector, this brown and black for the brake master cylinder. But I think it's a solid brown, and I think it's this yellow one. But I'll refer to a wiring diagram from the factory service manual when guessing. You know, always go by factory service manual if you're unsure. They're very accurate. You know, I don't see too many mistakes in them, and that'll let you know like your connections. But the only connections you're going to have is going to be for the horn. You're going to have the horn wire that comes out of this white connector, and you're going to have this high beam wire, and you're going to have that brake master cylinder failure wire that goes into one of these. And that should be the only connectors, I believe, that you're going to have to take loose. The rest is going to be on the fuse strip and the relay. And I'm going to show you a fuse box upside down and kind of show where that stuff goes. Kind of make it easier for the video. Okay, so I've got a fuse box on a table here in another room where I can kind of go over. Now this is, of course, how it's sitting in the car. You see this back ledge that hooks into a metal tab, and then the front goes up and bolts in. So I was wrong there. Well, in a way I was wrong. So you've also got the Microswitch wires, one of them that will be in this connector, and it is this white one on the green top right, and it is a brown and brown and black wire that goes to a Microswitch. That's the second on the right middle. Okay, those two come out, and then it is a brown wire on the yellow connector, and that that middle right position. So you'll have to take out those 3 connectors. That middle one, that top right, and that right middle. You'll take those loose. Those will be the ones from the connectors. And then on this white connector on this side will be the horn ground, the horn grounding wire that actually makes it finish its connection. And that'll be the number 1 position on the left. So this top left one, you're going to pull it out. And you can grab that harness and kind of do it one at a time. Now I'm going to flip this over, which I don't want it to confuse anybody, but it does get confusing a little bit because you're under the car looking at it a lot of times, or you're laying on your back doing this. But so this is the headlight relay, or for the high beams. Okay, so it's right here. It's on the end, and you see your yellow wire, your white wires that are joined together. This one wire goes to that green connector up here. Okay, that's for the high beam indicator. And then, so you'll pull all these wires, except for the green wire. You won't have to pull it. That green wire is the switching wire for your high beams. Then you're going to have, basically these 2 wires are all tied together. And they're just a jumper. And that jumps power from this relay over. So I'll show you more about this relay. It's got this yellow and black wire that goes to, I believe it's position, okay, it's position 85. That goes all the way up to your driver's side microswitch. And that's what actually turns it on. So when there'll be a black wire, I'll show you here. You've got 2 wires for the microswitch. A black one that goes to this position here. This will be your second wire on your ignition side. Okay, and it'll be a 12 gauge black wire. Now, our wiring harness, it'll be smaller. You don't need that big of a wire, but you can push that through. Okay, so power comes from that fuse, goes all the way up front to that little microswitch. When that microswitch is turned on, power goes all the way through this yellow and black wire to power this relay. Okay, so you're going to pull it off. This has got a red power lead to it. You can leave that on, and it's grounded. And it's grounded up at that fuse box stud that we saw the grounds attached to earlier. You can leave that. And then you've got 4 wires here. And those are, this one is the yellow, the white and yellow one that feeds the other relay. Just pull it off. Okay, so I'm editing this video. So these 3 wires here, gray and black, gray and red, gray and green, they stay. They can stay on there. They're just jumper wires from the fuse box. They actually come up right here. Okay. Now, you'll notice on this fuse box, so you got gray and black, gray and red, gray and green. And these are big wires. And then on the back, you got the same color codes, but they're smaller. Okay, now I can't tell you exactly which one, but you can see like that one's cut loose. You're going to pull it off. That's going to be for the right-hand lights. This is going to be for the left-hand lights. And then this one will be for the reverse lights, you're going to leave it on because we're not doing that part of that harness. So it'll stay. So you'll just have a gray and black and a gray and red that'll come off. Okay. Then you have turn signals. And black and white is the driver's side. That'll come off. And then you'll have black and green. That'll be the passenger side. That'll come off. And there's no fuse there because this is all the rights and this is all the lefts. That's how they're joined. So they're not fused. It's fused on down in the system. The only other wire that, let's see, well, there is a couple wires you pull. This black and yellow one on the very far end, that's your horn power. That's going to come out. There is a red and black wire here. That powers the Microswitch for the indicator light. That'll pull out. Okay, don't mix that up with black and red. It's red and black. And, you know, it'll only go on one of these terminals. So that's pretty much going to get all your wiring out that needs to get out. Next I'll show you is actually kind of putting our harness in and making the connections. Once you start making the connections, it really goes, it goes quick. And you'll run your, you know, most of your headlight wires through here to the relay, and you just have to remember the left and right, and you'll have to snake these two wires in for there. So, but I mean, if you take your time, it really isn't a big deal to get this out. And like I said, our wires will be a little smaller because it's just not needed that big. So this black one, it's 12 gauge. It'll be 18 gauge. And it just powers the little micro switch that tells that relay to turn on. Same with this yellow and black wire. It doesn't need to be 12 gauge. So that's how we've made more room in the harness, is by downsizing those wires that were redundant. The Microswitch wires, all of them, they made 12 gauge, and they're just ridiculous. So that's that part of it, and I'll edit that out. I had mentioned taking these wires off. You don't have to do that. They stay on there. So at this point, I've pulled all my wiring out, except for this one wire I wanted to mention. There is a gray and green wire. Now it's 12 gauge on this. Ours will be smaller. And it has a male connector, so you can't really connect it to anything in the fuse box. And that hangs out here, and that actually on like 71 and later will have this wire. If you got a 69 and 70, it won't. So I don't want it to, that's why I'm pointing this out. And of course, you know, that wire's been cut. And it'll come out of this fuse box and hang, and it'll plug into your instrument wiring harness. There'll be a like connector. There'll be just one single wire. I don't know if they just felt like they ran out of room in fuse box connections, so they did it this way. That's all I can assume. Because, I mean, they did have an extra wire here at the black connector, but European versions and stuff might differ where it was full up, so they had to do this. So just keep an eye out for that wire. If you have a 71 to 73, it will be in there. And I've got all the wire out that I need to take out. And you can see I don't have any more cut wires. What I would do is tug on the wire and see that it was connected, you know, to that harness that was cut off. And I just pulled it out and through. So now I'm ready to feed the wire through and bring it down into the grommet and lay it out here and just one by one work it in the box. Okay, so Brandon's fed the wire. He started through this way and bringing it up. And you can see we've kind of taped it up at a taper so it's easier to feed through there and not mess it up. So we fed it through there, caught the connector, that connector, and now that's where it'll go into the grommet at, and then we'll be ready to set it in. And on this side you'll have your ground wires. You can see the two holes right here that those will get screws for, and that's for all the grounds on the headlight. So you hook this up and your headlights aren't working, you forgot to put that ground in. And right now he's currently feeding microswitch wires through, but he'll do the headlights for this side. You can't mix these up. There'll only be one harness that's short enough to go in this side. And then we're going to continue to feed it down. We just haven't got there yet. Okay, so I'm just going to feed that wire through. Brandon's going to push it. I mean, you don't need two people for this, but I just wanted a video showing. You can see where we taped it up. That's that tapered spot. Now for us, we are going to do this engine harness, and it'd be easier for us just to take it out too. But you can see all the wiring come through, and he's going to push it in till we see the black sleeving right there. And that's as far as you need to go, really. So I'll untape this, and then I'm going to, one at a time, hook this up. Now, like, this will be the first wire I hook up. I'm gonna plug that in to number 1. That's the jumper for the high beam relay, or high beam indicator. Sorry. And I'll do it one at a time. I'll try to set this up where I can do it on video. Okay, so I'm going to try this. If I bump into the camera, don't mind it. I'll try to readjust. So right now I'm putting this high beam indicator switch, or the jumper, into that top slot, and I'm going to feed this so I can get it to that relay, which we know it goes right here, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it on there. There's our first connection. I'm going to take each wire one by one, or at least pair them up where I know they both go in that direction. So right here, yellow and black, and the solid yellow for the low beams, I'm going to feed down out to the relays. I'll say I'm going to. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. So I'm going to pull them through. And now this yellow one goes on the other side of this relay. And then this is, what did I say, 85. That goes to that actual headlight relay for the switch. And this is for the stereo or radio. I'm trying to move that out of the way. So, got that connection. Now, you'll be saying to yourself, well, you got 3 brown wires. One is brown and black, which we know that one goes in the second position to the right of that green connector. And these 2 brown wires, one's going to be smaller than the other. The 14 gauge is your horn. And we know where it goes. It goes in the top left of the white connector. So let's go ahead, and what we want to do, we want to eliminate as many connections as we can. And we know this one goes to number 2 position of the yellow connector. So I'm throwing them in there because half the job is already done. So now this white and yellow, it'll go out to the relays as well. So I'll just kind of, you know, because it's got a jumper, and I'll take the straightest end I can to push it out. And it'll come out here, and this end goes on by the 4 wires for the headlight relay, and then it jumps over to your high beam relay, to that connection, and then this other one will get looped right to that connection. And then you can fold these up, push them up just like the factory did. So then we're down. I mean, we got our turn signals, our left and right. We got the Microswitch wire. We got the horn power, which I showed you that. And then you got these 2 gray and black and gray and reds. That'll go to the lights. So they're going to be right here. I'm going to go ahead and, since they got to push back here, I'm going to feed them in the best I can. And if I was laying down, this would be a little easier for me. It's always kind of hard to show. But I'll pull these through, and then red and black will hook up right there. I mean, red and red, and then gray and black goes on that end one. Okay, so we're doing good. Turn signals are easy. So on this end you got black and green. I'll take my black and green, put it through there, hook it up. White and black and white is going to be your driver side. It's going to come up here and plug in to that top connector there. Easy peasy. Okay. Now this is I don't have the end on it yet, but this is going to be the wire that hooks to the instrument panel, and you can just run it down by the between the black and white connector and pull it through and leave it there. Okay, so you got a solid black. Black is the power for the lights, and it's going to come, you can run it down between that white and black connector, and it's going to go to the fuse on that ignition side. So when your key's on, you can turn on your lights. And let's see here. Okay, I got it fed through. I'm going to hook it up to that second position, and then that should leave me 2. Black and yellow is the horn power, and this red and black is for the micro switches. And both of these are going to go towards the back left-hand side of this box. And it's pretty easy to remember that the black and yellow goes with the purple wires at the end connection, and then that red and black, it's going to go on, I believe it's position 2. It'll be with the heater power. Okay, don't go by these fuses, they're incorrect. And this is just a radio, but that'll go there. And guess what? You've got all your headlight wires hooked up. Now that was real time. I know this harness inside and out. So it's easy for me. I know it'll take you a lot longer to do that, but you can see in real time how long it really takes. Then when you're ready, you just kind of push these wires and get them, kind of massage them into place. And there's a little strap up there, and you'll just pull it forward slightly so you can hook it, and then you'll put your nuts on, and it'll sit like that. Now we're going to do the engine harness on this, so you're not going to see that. I'm going to make a little racket here. But so again, this will have a connector that will go to your instrument panel harness. When it plugs into here, you'll have a connection right there. Be sure to put your grounds back up. That's important. This had a heated rear window, so it's got a little extra wiring. It's got this coming down. That's the indicator light. So that's installing that part, the hard part, in real time. Yeah, but take your time, do it one wire at a time until you've eliminated all your wires and you've got it. It's really easy when you kind of do it one at a time. Okay, so passenger side, you can see we just run the wires through there. Now when you're putting the headlight bucket in, you're going to have to push these back in that hole so they're clear. You can see our 3 wires for the microswitch, and there's our microswitch, so we can't really mess up on how we did it. Now we replaced the microswitches on this, so, and then this gray and red wire, that's going to go up for this marker. There's a metal tab right there. That kind of secures the marker light wire to pull it out of the way of the headlights. So that's got that side. He's working this side up. We got both micro switches out. You can see the red and black wire on that one and the brown and black wire. And then this one has the black wire and the yellow and black wire. And notice the positions of those switches. This one's on the inside and the common, and that one's on the common and the outside connection. Now these are labeled NO and NC for normally open, normally closed, and C for common. Don't confuse that for ground. I mean, sometimes it is the ground, but most times it's not. And in the wiring diagrams, it'll state NO or NC to let you know that, like, that black wire goes to common, on this switch. And it'll tell you the other one goes to, NO or NC. So you can't mess them up. And you can see we got our brown and red wires there, ready to hook up to the new micro switch, and same with our yellow and black wire. So that part's, pretty easy. And you can see where we've already got it fed through that hole, and it'll go through that hole of the headlight mechanism. And just for reference, I'll show you in here, you can see the wires are kind of routed in here to access them. And we'll get this all finished up. Be sure to ground it. There's the holes on the inner fender on the driver's side for the ground wires. You'll just want to make sure that you connect those, and don't forget them. And if you have a brake master fail wire and you got a newer booster master cylinder combo, you won't be using that. Just tie it off or cut it. It doesn't matter.